Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. In this video, I want to talk about my top 3 favorite cryptocurrencies right now that I think have realistic 100x potential in the upcoming years. So not only do I want to briefly describe to you guys what's going on with these 3 different cryptocurrencies, but I also want to do and take a little bit of a different approach that no YouTuber I know of does when making these kinds of videos. I want to try my best to also briefly summarize some of the major risk factors. So folks, if you like the sound of that, do me a favor, smash that like button. Without further ado, let's delve into it.
I believe that this nation should commit itself to achieving the goal before this decade is out of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to the earth.
Folks, the channel is called A Million with the Moon for a reason. We're trying to go on the channel from being not so rich to very much so through crypto investing and find those investment opportunities that have the capability of not just exploding, but going to the moon. And so in that effort, I want to bring to you guys and describe to you guys briefly what is going on with Zen Crypto, founded by Mr. Jack Levin. So I actually had him on the channel recently to describe what this cryptocurrency is all about. So why don't we briefly hear the founder out himself in describing what Zen is. What is Zen? What is its use case? Just tell us what Zen is all about.
So Zen is like Bitcoin. It's based on Bitcoin, and it has some meme coin aspects in it too. So like, for example, Dogecoin has been very, very popular. And it's been popular because it has this angle of being cryptocurrency for a little guy, more so than Bitcoin or Ethereum. And it had a vibrant community. And I thought that what if I could replicate the first principles of Satoshi's paper with strong community and without necessarily the maximalism. And maximalism would be, it's kind of like an exclusive club, relatively high barrier to entry, that sort of thing. And you have to like invest into this one thing and forget about everything else. So with the Zen ecosystem, I wanted to build Zen as a building block for the ecosystem creation. So Zen is like Legos, and what you can build with it could be anything.
How do you see Zen being utilized by the average day, folk?
So currently, Zen is in its, I guess, minting phase or hyperinflationary phase, which is very important for Zen to be held by as many humans as possible in the world. And that addresses several aspects. First, if you have a large community, the value is just the community size. Because when the community gets large, everyone else decides to work with the community just because the addressable market is very large. And so community is this one side of the coin. The other side of the coin is all of the developers that are coming. So developers are building on Zen, and we have the proof of burn mechanism inside Zen, which is not prevalent in many coins. You can actually have a contract built on top of Zen that does a callback back to the Zen contract and execute the burn. And when we say the burn, yes, it's destroying Zen, but at the same time, you can issue another token from Zen. So you can have the blockchain act as a market maker for you without the counterparty. So let's dig into that a little bit deeper. For you to buy any coin out there, you have to buy it from someone, correct?
Right.
There's no other option. Now, let's say that you're a developer and you're developing a very interesting project that does something completely opposite of Zen is doing, but it's still very useful and very interesting, and we don't even know what it might be. But let's just say that it's a good idea and you want to have the largest addressable market. So what you can do is you can build a contract that will allow you to trade your Zen or to trade everybody's Zen for this new token by exchanging within the contract itself without the counterparty.
Now, I want to hover on one point he brought up there, which is he mentioned the fact that Zen is highly inflationary. And if we kind of look at the chart since launch, we are down quite substantially. I mean, we're down 99.97%, roughly speaking. So Zen is essentially a highly inflationary token. So if we go to zen.network, folks, we can currently see how many chains Zen currently exists on. And simply to mint some Zen, go to zen.network, go to mint, connect your wallet, and then simply through a transaction fee, you can mint some Zen. So Zen is essentially highly inflationary, which is why we've seen this massive crash. Now, there are a couple developments coming down the road that I think greatly change the situation with Zen, and I think opens the possibility for Zen being potentially highly profitable on a couple fronts. So let me expand on what I mean. So soon there will be a second token to the ecosystem that will be that will have a max supply, unlike Zen, that you can only access through burning Zen. There's also Zen NFTs that will pay out inflation in terms of Zen, but you need to burn Zen in order to access those NFTs. So the creator Jack Levin is essentially creating a bunch of mechanisms to burn Zen and essentially make a Zen deflationary over time. And the reason why I think Zen specifically could have 100x potential is not necessarily because of the token itself, although perhaps that is possible, but because of the recent news that Jack is launching a brand new layer 1 smart contract blockchain. Essentially, think of it as a competitor to Ethereum, a version of Ethereum, but will be forking Polygon, Matic Polygon. So it's going to be an extremely fast layer 1 smart contract blockchain. And he has previously mentioned during a live stream, one of the ways in which you can get the gas token to this layer 1 ecosystem is through having Zen and burning Zen. So this is still very early days, folks. The tokenomics of this new layer 1 token are still unknown, but it has been confirmed that one way to get this layer 1 token is through having and burning Zen. One of the most consistent winners in the crypto space has been the niche of layer 1 smart contract blockchains. We've seen what happened to Ethereum, Cardano, Solana. I can go on and on. There's a dozen or two layer 1 smart contract blockchains that are competing with Pulse Chain that all performed extremely well over the years. So that is why I'm bringing up Zen here, because ultimately Zen is extremely inflationary, and even though there are a lot of mechanisms being built out to decrease the circulating supply of Zen, at the end of the day, buy pressure does have to enter the system for the price to go up. And so it is an open question whether or not the game theory and these deflationary mechanisms will ultimately cause buy pressure to outpace the sell pressure that, as we've seen, has been historically massive due to how Zen is designed to be highly inflationary at first and then far less inflationary and eventually deflationary moving forward. So Zen is a rather new, speculative, unproven piece of game theory where it's yet to be seen whether or not the buy pressure will ultimately beat out the current sell pressure. But because of this recent news of all these mechanisms to burn Zen and the news of this brand new layer 1 was essentially a Matic Polygon fork, which did amazing last bull market, I do think Zen is worth taking a look at. I will personally be diversifying into it myself. Again, none of that's financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. Number 2 on my list is Hex. And folks, it is extremely hard to beat Hex and to not give it a bit of your consideration. Why is that? Well, one of the reasons why it's so unbeatable is because you will soon be getting a 2x of all the Hex you hold as long as you hold it on a private wallet that you have the private keys to, essentially meaning not an exchange. If you're holding your Hex on a MetaMask, you will soon get a 2x. You'll double all your holdings when Pulse Chain launches. So the founder of Hex is Richard Hart. Richard Hart is forking Ethereum 2.0, essentially creating a faster, cheaper version of Ethereum, copying the entire system state and plopping it on a new, faster, cheaper network, which means all the cryptocurrencies that currently exist on Ethereum will exist on Pulse Chain, including Hex. So whatever cryptocurrency you like, if you're not going to get a 2x in the supply in the near future, sometime in the next couple of months, well, it's very hard to justify investing in it because you will get that with Hex. Again, Hex today, 10,000x from its all-time low to its all-time high. It's designed to appreciate in value over time. We'll delve into some of the tokenomics, but it's really, really hard to beat an up-and-coming 2x. Not to mention, we'll delve into some of how the staking works, but you will also get a doubling of all your stakes with Hex, which is extremely bullish to say the least. Now, folks, what Hex is very simple. It's essentially Bitcoin with a proof of work chain, where the inflation in Bitcoin gets paid out to the miners, where the inflation in Hex gets paid out to the stakers. Think of it as kind of the world's first blockchain CD, where if you choose to, you can lock up some Hex anywhere from 1 day all the way to 5,555 days. And the bigger and longer and earlier you stake your Hex, the more interest you will earn. Now, one big feature of Hex is that when you lock up your tokens, you are unable to unstake until your term limit is over. And if you try to withdraw your tokens early, you get a massive, massive penalty. All Hex is essentially a very interesting piece of game theory where Hex inflates at a rate of 3.69% a year. That inflation gets paid out to the stakers. You want to stake as long as you can, as big as you can, as early as you can, because the way interest is paid out in Hex is through shares. And the price of those shares will forever get more expensive in terms of hex. And so because of this interesting piece of game theory, we essentially did a 10,000x with hex. It was one of the best performing cryptocurrencies over the last bear market, or bull market rather. I don't know how familiar all of you are with hex, but hex did receive a lot of FUD, a lot of unnecessary, a lot of unwarranted fear, uncertainty, and doubt in the last bull market. And a lot of it was frankly unwarranted. So right now, I want to take a moment to explain some of the legitimate risks that do exist with hex. I love hex. Hex is my number one largest bag hold, but just like with everything, there is some risk. Number one of the things that people bring up with hex is the fact that Richard Hart, or the hex originators, controls a massive portion of the total hex supply, about 40%. And they say that this is a problem because, you know, if Richard ever were to sell, or the originators were to sell, or some large whale were to sell, that would essentially crash the price of hex. Another criticism is that hex is rather illiquid compared to other cryptocurrencies. Essentially, there's a lot less money in the liquidity pairs, and that is true, which makes hex more volatile than other cryptocurrencies. So it can be more volatile to the downside, but it can also be more volatile to the upside. Now, with those criticisms being said, the funny thing is that people bring these things up when criticizing hex, but that also, these criticisms frankly also apply to a vast majority of other cryptocurrencies. All cryptocurrencies have whales within their ecosystem. Satoshi Nakamoto, the founder of Bitcoin, owns about 1 million Bitcoin. If Satoshi were to market sell 1 million Bitcoin on Binance, it would have the exact same effect as if the origin address were to market sell its hex holdings. So I find a lot of the arguments against hex rather lacking. And so because I think there's this dichotomy between how hex is viewed and the actual fundamentals, which I believe is solid, that dichotomy brings with it a great deal of opportunity. I like to think about hex in a similar way as how Tesla was viewed back in kind of the early 2010s. I don't know if any of you will remember when Tesla and Elon Musk were first getting well known. Everyone and their mother was saying this company is going to zero. Everyone was shorting it. But if you look at the underlying fundamentals, the world was thirsting for an electric car. And therefore, because the fundamentals were sound, but the sentiment wasn't, the sentiment was negative, there was actually massive opportunity. I believe that's the exact same scenario we have with Hex, where if you ask a lot of these large cryptocurrency influencers what they think about Hex, they say, I don't know, this or that. But they haven't really looked into it. Once you look into it and realize that the fundamentals are solid and it's just the perception that's negative, well, and if it's just a matter of time before that changes, well, what you have is massive opportunity. And so, sure, even though there are some risk factors with Hex, the number one biggest risk factor being that Richard Hart owns a large portion of the supply, there are many whales within other ecosystems that could just as easily crash the price. And so it's not a very convincing argument, in my opinion. So that's what Hex is all about. Now, folks, there is another cryptocurrency that is not discussed very often that I want to break down for you guys right now. This is Casper Network, ticker symbol CSPR. We're looking at a 3-day chart right now. And again, this is another chart that looks god awful, but there's a lot of nuance to this because there was a lot of controversy surrounding the launch because it launched very illiquid on I think one exchange, and so we had this massive price wick up and then a massive crash, although there was not a lot of liquidity at the very beginning. So this price chart can be a little bit misleading here. So another way to kind of think about the current valuation with Casper Network is to kind of compare it to the ICO token price, which was at 3 cents. So we're not too far at all from the ICO price, basically the fundraising round price, which in my opinion leads me to believe we're not at a terrible valuation. But what is this thing all about? So according to the white paper, the network aims to speed up business operations by utilizing blockchain technology and offering unique features such as predictable network fees, on-chain governance, privacy, flexibility, and developer-friendly languages. Casper makes it possible to upgrade on-chain smart contracts. There's pros and cons to that, thereby eliminating the need for complicated migration processes and making it easier to address the smart contract flaws. So folks, like I mentioned earlier, Layer 1 smart contract blockchains, massive winner in the past. Not a lot of people are talking about Casper Labs, Casper Network, and so I think it's undervalued. Folks, once every cryptocurrency influencer and your mother is talking about the same coin. The money has been made. You want to try and get into things early at a good valuation, into things that people aren't talking about that are of high quality, addressing a large total addressable market with the ability to pull it off because of the fundamentals, tokenomics, team, track record of success, all that good stuff. And I think Casper has a lot of those elements. And specifically, one of the niches going for is business adoption, enterprise adoption, seeing if we can get, Apple or whatever it may be to start utilizing the blockchain. That is what this particular blockchain is geared towards. So it's kind of going after a niche where it's yet to be seen whether there's going to be true adoption there. So there is kind of a higher degree of risk with Casper Network because it's going after a niche that, again, it's kind of unproven how much adoption that niche will bring in or not. Super early days. I'm not even aware of this blockchain having a major decentralized exchange on it. So it's essentially very early, which means there's a lot of element of this ecosystem and idea being unproven and therefore higher risk. But the earlier you can get into something, generally speaking, the higher the potential reward. So you got to kind of weigh those two yourself. We're currently listed on a lot of pretty big exchanges here, crypto.com, KuCoin, to name a few. You could also stake your Casper and earn just over 10% a year. So folks, to summarize the pros and cons here, Layer 1 smart contract blockchains, obvious winner. But because we're very new and because we haven't seen that adoption yet, because we haven't seen the developers coming yet, because we haven't seen whether or not this particular niche is going to see a lot of adoption yet, there is that higher degree of risk. But with that being said, we're currently hovering around the all-time lows. We're currently hovering around the ICO price. And so we're potentially at a good valuation. Now, folks, this video is not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. I do want to let you guys know I personally have some holdings in all three of these cryptocurrencies. Now, this video is getting a bit long, so I want to implore you guys, if you want to find out more information, check out the video over here where I interview Jack Levin. And if you want to find out more about Hex, check out the video over here where I describe potential price predictions that we could see for Hex in the near future. Folks, like and subscribe, click all the buttons, and until next time, take care.